Hello again, this is Preheat. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today we're going to be taking a first look at Devourer Demon Hunter. So this is the new 25-yard range intellect damage spec. It is ranged, although it does dip into melee, in and out of melee very, very fluidly. The movement on this spec is very good. And, you know, playing mage and evoker, this is something that's very important to me. I like to be able to feel like I have full control over my character as I'm running around. And I gotta say, after only playing this for about an hour doing the intro quests, I think I have a pretty good handle on the movement. You have a lot of freedom to do some pretty crazy stuff as this spec and kite pretty well. Also, you know, deal with a lot of incoming damage, kicks, stops. I mean, it's kind of got it all. But in today's video, we're going to talk about what this spec is, how it works right now. Obviously, this is all, you know, subject to change. It's alpha. But I think that you can get a pretty good sense, even early on, for the design philosophy and how Blizzard intends this spec to play and how it looks and how it feels just by getting your hands on it and seeing it for a couple hours. So anyways, yeah, we're going to talk about all the abilities so you can kind of explain like what I'm actually doing here. But if you have any interest in mage or evoker, this is definitely something that I would look into. It's feeling pretty good. We're not going to talk about my impressions of mage just yet because I want to make a dedicated video for that. But I will say that of the specs that I have tested so far, and I've tested about 6 or 7, there is definitely a design shift when it comes to simplifying the specs. But overall, I think Devourer, just like how it feels and what it can do, just it's pretty awesome. And I'm definitely a fan of it so far. So anyways, let's jump into it. All right, let's start with the basics. So Devourer is an intellect damage dealer. It is ranged. Most of your abilities are 25 yards, although you will weave into melee for certain abilities, but you always have a way out because of talents that allow you to have like a vengeful retreat reset. When it comes to the abilities, the overall design here is fairly straightforward. So you have like your main builder, which is consumed. This is a 25-yard ability, fairly long cast, but you can cast it while moving. And this generates 2 of your resources. So that's going to be Fury and Soul Fragments. Fury is going to be what fuels our I-Beam ability, which is Void Ray. This is essentially the same thing as I-Beam, but it's more of a line instead of a bit of a cone. And it has all sorts of interactions with our other talents. But this thing does a ton of damage. There's a lot of talents that also affect it. And is very, very good at ripping souls out of the enemies, which is the other part here, the Soul Fragments. Your cooldown is Void Metamorphosis. I'm calling it a cooldown, but it's not actually really a cooldown. Like, you could technically use this back to back, but it requires 50 souls, which does take some time to build up. So as you can see, Consume only makes 1 soul fragment. We're going to have to get a lot of those by using Void Rays. That's a really good way to build them. But with this ability, you enter Metamorphosis. Some of your abilities get amped up, and you get access to a new ability called Collapsing Star. You probably saw this in the intro video. Basically, you do like this crazy Spirit Bomb ability. That's what it looks like. And it has talents that make it do crazy damage, like always correctly striking, and other things that make it amp the damage. But yeah, basically the idea is like you want to begin combat, you want to build Fury, that way you can spend it on the beam, use the beam to get souls, and then once you have 50 souls, you go Void Metamorphosis whenever you're in your form. It's going to start draining your Fury very, very rapidly. You can stay in it forever, but you are going to have eventually a point where like you can't keep up, because the Fury degen ramps over time. And the goal is essentially to enter Void Metamorphosis and to get as many of those Collapsing Stars off as possible. So generate as many souls as possible, spend as many souls as possible, keep on using that ability. It does ramp in damage with certain talents. Yeah, it's a big hitting move. Pretty much whenever you're leveling, it's just like one-shots every mob. The damage on this thing was like similar to Arcane Surge with like a barrage that's like fully buffed up. So, and it's a AoE hit. So yeah, it hits really, really damn hard. Yeah, very strong. Okay, so the souls themselves, whenever you are hitting enemies, they drop like these little orbs around. That's what the souls are. It's a resource, but it's on the ground. The way that you collect those, you don't have to run over them, although you could. The main way is by using this ability called Reap. So basically with Reap, you're going to gather a certain amount of souls around you. It has a limit, but you can affect that with talents. And then it's also going to generate Fury, and it's going to deal damage. You like shoot out a line shot with it once you've done it. This is a cooldown, so you can't just like Reap forever, but you wouldn't want to do that anyways because you want souls to be on the ground whenever you press this. Essentially, the idea is like put 4 souls on the ground, press Reap. Put 4 souls on the ground, press Reap. You just do that over and over again. And then the other 2 abilities are both longer cooldowns. So we have Void Blade. This is a ability where we like dash in and do a big hit. And then we have the Hunt, which dashes in, applies a damage taken debuff to our target and does an even bigger hit. This one's a long cooldown. Now, both of these have talents that modify them, but I want to point out like the big one. So a Hungering Slash, whenever you press either one of those two dash abilities, which are both cooldowns, you're going to be able to use a follow-up ability that does a ton of AoE damage and gives you a ton of souls as well. So you're always going to want to chain those with that melee hit, and they both fling you into melee anyways. So basically you fly in, you do your big hit slash big AoE, you ventral retreat out instantly, or you could just do another one in there and stay melee for a bit if you want to. Either way works. But it's very, very good for generating both Fury and your souls, and you're going to want those for the Void Metamorphosis. And that's really it when it comes to the rotation. Everything else is kind of like utility stuff, like Sunder, which is a heal, Void Nova, which is a stun. You have your typical stuff like Blur, right? Throw Glaive, although this is really just for, I think, marking targets with Chaos Brand, perhaps slowing them, pulling mobs. You really don't want to use it aside from utility. But yeah, I mean, so it is very simple and straightforward, but it is pretty fun too. Now, I don't really know what the best talents are here because it's hard to get an impression just after playing it for maybe like an hour on what could be good, but this is kind of what I landed on. So the idea here is I'm trying to amp up anything that has to do with the hunt, stacking damage modifiers, so I can basically put up all my cooldowns and then do like a really big hit with my Void Metamorphosis into a Collapsing Star. One of these talents gives you a Collapsing Star instantly. So essentially, as soon as you enter your Void Metamorphosis, you can just, boom, hit them with the Collapsing Star. If you wanted to go more into that playstyle, like if I had better stats and I was able to maintain my Void Metamorphosis longer, perhaps in like a raid setting instead of just questing, I would also want the talents that deal with that to amp the damage over time and give me like a proper Surrender to Madness kind of gameplay. I think overall, the damage that you do as the spec is going to come down to like getting a certain amount of Collapsing Stars per Void Metamorphosis. That seems to be like the skill expression of the spec. And it's pretty fun. Like, it's a fun hook. Also, I should mention, and one thing that I like about this too that's kind of interesting is that they have actually built in safeguards for Void Metamorphosis. You have like a window that's like semi-punishing whenever you enter this form where you want to just get as much damage as possible for those 50 souls that you spent to get into it. But you also have the ability to stay in the form outside of combat. Or if you get crowd controlled. So Grim Focus gives us, it says, while in Void Metamorphosis, leaving combat or being crowd controlled will substantially reduce the rate at which you drain Fury. This was actually surprising me. Whenever I was questing, I was just running around as a demon sometimes for a really long time, and I'd be like, whoa, wait, I'm still in my cooldown. I didn't realize that. Yeah, it is very substantial. Definitely something where, you know, if you're between pulls and Mythic Plus and you pop your Void Metamorphosis just to get like one last Collapsing Star off, probably not the end of the world because you could just run to the next pack and still have that thing up. And yeah, overall, feeling pretty good about it. I mean, the movement on this thing is crazy. I just want to show you an example here. So obviously, Ventral Retreat is like pretty good. Having access to Glide, I mean, I don't have to tell you that's good if you play Evoker. But also, your Shift ability allows you to do things that like you wouldn't expect with it. You can actually like traverse through the air. Now, obviously, sometimes you get like no path available, but there are situations where you can kind of like jump up a gap or jump down a gap. And it's surprising, honestly, pretty intuitive. Having access to Glide too, you're never really in trouble. You know, the movement is not necessarily twitchy, but it is very finessey, very stunty. Feels very cool. And the animations on the spec are just absolutely spectacular. I am definitely planning to make a Devourer alt, and I'm going to be playing this whenever the expansion comes out. Let me know in the comments if you want to see content around Devourer. And what your impressions are of this spec so far. Are you liking the idea? Do you just get turned off by the 25-yard range? Let me know. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.